recording has started. The agenda for today, first I would like to introduce myself a little bit. I guess our guests don't need that much of an introduction, but they will introduce themselves as we go. So I'm Gergő Somodi, co-founder of Barbell Notes, which is a training management application designed for weightlifting. It grew out of my frustration of not finding a tool as a weightlifting coach to create quality training programs at scale and at ease, and also to collect feedback from my athletes properly, which would help me to make decisions about how to improve their performance. And as part of creating the tool, we did a research, started at the beginning of the year into lifting ratios, which inform training decisions. And we wanted to validate the Soviet sports science concepts behind how the assistant lifts are related to the main exercise. So the first presenter is Sergey Putsov. He's going to talk about the background of the lifting ratios, and we'll touch on the research that we did, also the recent results. And then his 20-25 minutes presentation will be followed by Justin's 20-25 minute presentation. And after that, there will be Q&A. I will ask all of you to, if you have questions, please don't interrupt the presentations, but put the questions into the chat. And then after both presentations were done, we will go through each of the questions one by one. The entire call is about 9 minutes, and Sergey, I make you the host now so that you can start your presentation, but please don't forget, once you are done, to make either me or Justin the host again, so that we can also share.
Yes, I will try to do my best. Okay. Hello, people. I'm happy to be here. Let me start to sharing the screen. Adjust it the way it's more comfortable for you, and we are good to go like this, and like this. For me, it's fine. So first of all, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for invitation. My topic today is transfer effect of snatch variation. I'd like to say that I'm a big Olympic weightlifting lover, and I'm happy to be here again. First of all, I'm not native speaker. I'm from Ukraine. That is why if I will spell something incorrectly, it will not be clear. Please put your question in the chat. In the dark past, I'm pro weightlifter. I was a national team member, now only recreational weightlifter, but still lifting 3-4 times per week, and I love it very much. Also, I'm a little bit in science. I'm PhD and still use it as a part of my work, and from time to time doing some researches. I will speak a little bit about this today as well. My main job now, I'm working together with my buddy Alexei Tarakhti, worldwide known weightlifter, and we do seminars, and also we do a lot of online work to develop Olympic weightlifting, because this is what we love to do. So as I said, transfer of snatch variations, our topic. So we will speak briefly about history of this question, what's going on now, and why there is a power and hang snatch in the agenda. You will hear about this during my presentation. Also, I would like to invite all of you to share information about this lecture. Feel free to do pictures, feel free to do stories. You're very welcome. So let's go. First of all, let's say that the researching and studying the question of relation about the history, about the accessory exercises in weightlifting. It started in 1970s, and Bulgarians coaches were first who did it from practical perspective, and then in the 80s, Ukrainian and Soviet coach and scientist Nikolai Laputin with his PhD student Valentin Oleshko, who now is professor and well-known scientist in the world. They did a big research. It was Valentin Oleshko's PhD work and dissertation, and after this they released a very famous book, well-known in the United States, for example, which is called Management of the Training Process of Elite Weightlifters, and this was the scientific fundamental beginning of studying of this question. They assume that assistant exercises are mostly always part of the training process of weightlifters of all levels, and they assume that it's not the best way to check preparedness of weightlifters daily by using only snatch and clean and jerk, because it could be exhausting and can provoke a lot of injury. And that is why the practice showed them that accessory exercises could be a good tool to analyze the level and the quality of training process, because accessory exercises are sufficiently similar in execution to the competition lifts. And it needed to say that Oleshko repeatedly did those testing through the years from 90s and till now. And recently we did also small research, but before I would like to say some screenshot from his dissertation. It was like this in the 80s. So he did analysis through the all 10 male weightlifting categories, and he analyzed 14 exercises. And what he found in 90s, it's just a few numbers that became very well known. Most coaches use this model that, for example, power snatch is supposed to be around 80% of the competition snatch, and also the numbers about the achievement in front and back squat. This is numbers, this is relation between best clean and jerk and front and back squat. It also became as a model numbers that a lot of coaches use to understand if we have lack of strength or we need to develop technical side of the clean and jerk. Anyway, those numbers exist already for years, over 40 years. But as I said, weightlifting is developing. We had some waves of developing in Olympic weightlifting due to weight classes changing. Female Olympic weightlifting started to develop. Now we had during last 15-20 years some restriction about the drug testing. So we assume that the training process changed. Also, there is some development in technique. There is some development in methodology. That is why recently we did also one more research like this with the team of my colleagues, including Gergo and scientists from the United States, William Hornsby and Christopher Tabor and Valentin Oleshko as well. We collected a lot of data. I personally collected data at the last Europeans in Armenia. So this question is still alive, and we're still trying to understand what's going on. And what we found that actually numbers are more or less stable. The only number that is changing, it was in the relation between competition snatch and power snatch, because now we can see that if before it was 80%, now it's something around 84, 87. And it means that technical side of the execution is developing, because athletes can lift more in this exercise. And also we found the difference between achievement in overhead squat between male and female athletes, and also it could be explained because of the physiological differences of the upper limbs strengths, and those numbers, they are a little bit bigger than I showed you before, because this is relation between snatch and back squats and front squats, because though this research was related only to the snatch. This is what we had now. Also, when we did the correlation analysis, we found that very high correlation exists between competitive snatch, and two very famous exercises. It's a power snatch and hang snatch. Another snatch exercises, they also had a kind of high correlation, but the highest one is between these two. That is why we decided to focus and do some analysis about these exercises, and to speak about them today a little bit more. And what is more interesting, if we will analyze these three categories of Olympic weightlifters that we can see now on the picture, usually when we work with the beginners and when we teach progression, usually first snatch related exercise that beginner will execute will be a power snatch. I would say it will be high hang power snatch, because this is the easiest progression which look like a snatch. And I believe the second exercise that beginners will execute will be a hang snatch, because most progression that we do with our beginners, it starts with standing position, and then athletes go slowly to the initial starting position and execute the snatch. And what is way more interesting, that when we ask the question to elite athletes, we found that the higher level of elite athletes level is, the less exercise actually they use in the training program. So, and when I ask the question, tell me your best result in your block snatch or in your overhead squat, a lot of athletes, they told me, I don't do this. So most of athletes, even on the highest level, they use in the program hang snatch. A lot of athletes, but not all, use power snatch, and most of them avoid exercise such as overhead squat or block snatch. Some of them use, but not too much. And if we will take a look at the competitive picture of CrossFits, if we will take a look at the competition, we will find that a lot of them really use power snatch. They love power snatch, and in the competition program they use a lot of hang snatch, but you will never find in the workout of the day, for example, block snatch or deficit snatch, something like this. That is why researching these two that I mentioned also makes some sense. So let's now speak about more with more detail about the exercise number one, called power snatch. This is how it looks actually, and the video presentation is done by Alexei Tarakti, and I will just show you slowly. I'm sure you know what is the power snatch, but maybe some people will realize that what they did all the time, it's not actually a snatch, it's a power snatch, because it happens very often in the CrossFit. What I would like to say, first of all, power snatch is a must-have exercise 100% for beginner, novice athlete, and intermediate. Why? Because it's good for working on extension phase. And if we will take a look at the statistics of the common mistake, not full extension, it's a very common problem. Also, as we spoke a little bit before, it has reduced turnover technical demands. So for beginners, it's easier. And when we want to focus on specific power position, maybe to work in the power snatch, it will be better than in the full squat snatch, because it will be more difficult from the coordination perspective. And what we know from the practice, that usually we work in the power snatch in the intensity zone from 60 to 75% of 1 RM. That is why it makes sense that it's perfect for power speed training. And it's also one of the benefits of the power snatch. And one more statement that I mentioned here, it can be beneficial for athletic performance training in other sport. For example, what I know from my practice, martial arts, wrestling, they use a lot of variations of power snatch. The most comfortable is the power snatch from mid-thigh level, and there are a lot of researches, especially in American football, which say that mid-thigh Olympic weightlifting variation are very useful for developing power and all things that related to the athletic position power production. But also, what we need to remember that there is not only benefits but also drawbacks of the power snatch. And I believe that we should always keep in mind that power snatch, it's not the way we do competition snatch. It's a tool to develop things that I already mentioned: extension phase, speed, power, and so on and so on. Because what we know from the practice, that big volume in power exercises, I mean power snatch and power clean, will definitely provoke inflammation of the ligaments and tendons, especially in the knees joints. That is why we should be accurate with the volume of these exercises. This is my opinion. The next exercise that I would like to pay your attention, it's a hang snatch. A little bit later, I will speak about the variation of power snatch as well. But first, let's speak about the exercises itself. So what we know, the hang snatch, it's a variation of classical snatch that begins with the barbell when we held in the lifter's hands rather than starting from the ground. And depending on the goals, we can use different hang position. It could be lift off position, below the knee, knee level, above the knee, mid thigh, high hang snatch. Depending what is the goal, we can find this position for our athletes. Let's move on. I would recommend from my coaching practice and from my athletical training practice to use straps all the time you do hang snatches, because as soon as we start to hold bar in our arms longer than we used to do, our forearms and biceps became tight, and it doesn't look like a proper snatch, and because the bar will not be flying. So it's a just small advice. So, benefits. I would like to say that hang snatch must have drill for all level of athletes. I already spoke about this. I love the benefit of the hang snatch because it naturally increases time under tension, because we need time to grab the bar, stand straight, then descend, take the starting position and lift, and then repeat it and repeat. And what we know from the basic science, that eccentric mode of working of our muscle when we move down and stretch our muscles will definitely enhance motor coordination. And this is a big benefit of hang snatch, because controlling barbell through the eccentric phase requires this and those improving motor coordination. Also, eccentric mode will provide better stability. I mean joint and muscle stability, and eccentric mode will definitely overload the muscles way more than just a concentric phase. That is why this is especially must-have exercise in preparation period if we speak about competition preparation. And what else we know from the science, that eccentric mode also beneficial for tendon health if we use it smart, and potentially reduce risk of the tendon injury if we use the hang snatch with the smart volume. Uh, Two more points that I would like to outline, that if we have any troubles in the first and the second pull, hang snatch, because we can isolate specific phases, help to concentrate and improve our technique in specific position, and also improve speed and timing as well. And well-known fact about hang snatch, that it develops turnover phase, because it encourages quick transition from the pull to get in under the bar, and helping to develop speed and agility. And those two qualities are definitely crucial for successful catch for the full snatch. But also, I would like to say about the drawback about the hang snatch. And here there is a small joke about Bulgarian lifter whose name is Carlos Nazar. He is world champion and European champion, and clean and jerk world clean and jerk record holder. So his competition snatch is a little bit more than 170. And what I know from his interview, that his training hang snatch is 190 kilos. And same things we know about Simon Martirosyan from Armenia, who did maybe 3 or 4 years ago hang snatch from the mid-thigh level 210, and now his body weight 10 kilos more, but his snatch is still 200 kilos. So it means that hang snatch is not answer for all question. And if your hang snatch is way more than competition snatch, maybe you should focus on a little bit different tools. And also we should keep in mind that drawback of the hang snatch is a very long recovery, because big muscle overload in the eccentric phase will require way more time to recover. And from my own memories of training a national team, when we had during the week one hang snatch and one hang clean, everybody were dead like for 5 days. So we should remember that big volume, inappropriate big volume and hang snatch will definitely provoke a risk of injury in lower back. Now I would like to speak about power snatch variation and complexes, and later on I will do the same about the hang snatch. So there's 9 different variation. I would like to speak about each briefly. I think that first one is a very familiar to everyone. When we do even a classical snatch and when we warm up for big weights, usually coach emphasize that let's do first rep power snatch just to pay attention on extension phase. And during the volume stage training, what I remember from my memories, when we had triples, coach always asked us to do example number 2, when I did full squat snatch, then power snatch, then again full squat snatch. Very good complex for coordination and setting up the movement. For example, in the recovery week, when we don't want to work in the full a range of motion, it's a good option to work in the lower weight complex number 3, like power snatch and hang power snatch above the knee. I love this very much because it helped to focus on the power position and quality catch in the overhead position. Classical approach power snatch and full squat snatch number 4 for coordination. I believe that number 5, it's one of the best tools for beginners when they still have a problem in turnover in the deep squat position. That is why first we emphasize on the good extension, and then if they can do snatch balance. If they still can't, they can do overhead squat, and will speed up the education phase. And then 4 more examples how to make people suffer. For example, if we had any problems in the transition between first and second pull and staying over the bar, power snatch with the pause on the knee level will cure this problem very fast. And the things that I like in person very much, it's a deficit power snatch for people who don't want I insist, don't want to extend in the power position. It could be 50-60% of your best, but the deficit power snatch will definitely will make you feel first and second pull, how long should it be, and then to develop power to make the bar fly even higher. And as a variation, it could be deficit post power snatch on the knee level, for example, if people lose coordination during the pull, and then deficit power snatch. And classical example for a lot of coaches, it's a snatch high pull. I will show it a little bit later in the video, and then power snatch. So this is my opinion, that this is the most popular and workable power snatch variation complexes that we should use to develop our mastery. I believe, and I know that especially in CrossFit, people, if they will have a chance to choose between power snatch and squat snatch, they will definitely choose the power snatch because it's easier. And what I saw a lot, especially in USA, when coach want people to do snatch, they draw on the whiteboard pull, squat, snatch, because when it's only snatch, most CrossFitters will do power snatch because they're too lazy to do good turnover and sit down. Okay, now we have a few more minutes. I would like to speak about hang snatch variations and show you some videos. So for beginners, when we want more time under tension, more focus on the staying over the bar, the variations such as hang snatch above knee and below knee will be beneficial. And this is important because what we know from the statistics of mistakes, that most mistakes that athletes do in the pool happens on the level above or below knees. That is why hang snatch complex with the focus on this will be beneficial. And as the more developed variation, it could be hang snatch above knee, then below the knee, then full squat snatch. And of course, number 3, classical variation, snatch plus hang snatch from the different position, depending on our goal. It's a must-have exercise in every weightlifting program. Also, I would like to show 3 more variation of the hang snatches, which became more popular now when elite athletes post their training on Instagram. And I would like to say that these 3 exercises look very impressive, but I highly don't recommend to use them for beginning level athletes because it looks impressive, but the coordination and risk to do something incorrectly is very high. So first one is a tempo snatch. Dmitro Chumak, Ukrainian weightlifter, is here. So technically it's a hang snatch with a touch and go mode. And here we can see that athlete very fast moving bar down to the starting position, and then he very quickly do transition from the eccentric mode to the concentric mode. And as I said, it looks very impressive, but what I saw from my practice that most beginners on the eccentric phase with such a high speed, they just lose coordination, and it looks not only ugly, but very dangerous. Example number 2, it's a snatch high pull with a snatch with a touch and go mode. It's also look impressive and looks like an exercise that I want to do. But what we can see here, the quality of snatch high pull athlete staying over the bar, he maintain vertical position and everything looks very beautiful. But also I would like to emphasize that, for example, for Dmitro Chumak, whose snatch in training is over 180 kilos. He is working in this progression with the weight 110, and what I saw most in person, it was 130. So it's something around below 60 and up to 70% and not more. So it's mostly like coordinational and technical exercise, but not the exercise for developing real strength, and we should keep it in mind. And the last exercise that I love, but also We should be very careful with this exercise. It's a snatch pull till power position, and then snatch, classical snatch in a touch and go mode. This is me doing it. So here we do snatch pull till power position, focusing on feet balance and good covering the bar, and then combine this pull with the snatch. And here is the focus on the feeling of the balancing and staying over the bar. In this exercise, we can do, we should work on our working percentages, like from 70 and higher, even up to 90. But also this type of complexes is very cool for the technical work. Here's my buddy Alexei Tarakhti, and this is the way he warm-ups usually. So he can do up to 6 reps, like a snatch pull till power position, then snatch again, and once again, like till power position, and then snatch. And when you will do this progression up to 3-5 sets with the lightweight, you will be amazed how good will be your pull and snatch as well. I'm almost done, and we are almost in time. So let's do some brief conclusion on my presentation today. Only 20 minutes, so not too much to say. But anyway, regarding first part of my presentation, I believe, and I do this, and I think that using lifting ratio of accessory exercises in general can be useful tool for testing and control of our athletes during all stages of preparation. I believe, and I agree with this, that science says us that power and hang snatch and variation are the most effective training means. Of course, we can use a lot of different exercises on the different stages of development, but power and hang snatches is always must have. And the last one, regarding the rivalry level on the world competition, and regarding that anti-doping rules are always toughening, and it's not the best way to grow result. I believe that all coaches and athletes need constantly to develop skills, learn, and be more smart to make weightlifting better. I also warmly invite everyone to visit our website. We have a lot of useful materials here, articles about different aspects of training. Also, please join our social media, where we share information about Olympic weightlifting. I believe it's very interesting and useful. And thank you for your attention. I'm almost in time, just a few minutes more. If you have any question, you can ask it now. And also, I'm always open for communication in the social media. So thank you for your attention, people.
Thank you, Sergey. That was excellent. I have a couple of questions and also a few remarks on the research, but let's move on to Justin now with the further on the power snatch, and then once Justin is done, we can have a discussion on how and why the power snatch and the hang snatch are so important and how to implement them.
Brilliant. I agree.
Thank you, Sergey. Right. So my name is Justin Holly, and unlike Sergey, I've not come from the Russian school or the Soviet bloc school of weightlifting. I've come from the enthusiast school, which is I love weightlifting. I love coaching weightlifting. I love weightlifters. And so I set a gym up, and then I want to learn how to best prepare my weightlifters for competition. And so that's what I've done for 12, 13 years now. And what I've discovered is, as you've learned from Sergey, he is talking about the importance of the efficiency of the lifter, the experience of the lifter, the way in which the lifter will learn how to become efficient over time. So I'm going to share with you a program that I wrote for a weightlifter who was going to an international competition in 2021. And this competition was the most important competition of this weightlifter's life. So before this competition, his previous best lifts were in competition were 286 kilos. So that was a snatch of 131 and a clean and jerk of 155 kilos. So this was part of the what we call a quad. This was the games to the games, Commonwealth Games to another Commonwealth Games, and he had to qualify. You know, we had a pandemic going on; it was all confusing. You know, all the rest of it. So we had this enormous competition. He was, I believe, in 21. He was about 20, 21 years old, maybe 22 years old. So still a junior in terms of weightlifting. And what we wanted to do was to elevate his potential, elevate his competition results to become a Commonwealth Games athlete and compete for medals. That was the goal. So previous competition, 286. And Sergey, if you could pull up the first slide. There we are. So here's my notes. Now, bear it in mind, I write with pencil and I use paper. So you can see the competition results there was, where have we got it? 25, 28, 31 here on the snatches. On the clean and jerks, he hit 55. He cleaned 59, missed the jerk, hit 60, missed the jerk. So if you come down underneath that, I've got build fitness for clean and jerk. So in other words, I'm saying he's not fit enough to make his jerks. I need to build his squat and also build power snatch. So that was an important note that I made at that time at the end of this competition. And in the top right corner, you've got breathing squats. So this is what this athlete required was a lot more tension in his torso to absorb the loading of the weight, because he's a light lifter. He was a 69 kilo lifter. It's very difficult for light lifters to absorb all of the mass and the force of the barbell and the load. Work on breathing squats and tension in body, work on sets, what have I got there? Work on set tension for snatch. So in other words, the lifter was not setting well enough in his start position. So you can see, what you can see there is that there's a collection of choices and decisions to be made by the coach and the athlete to say, where do we want to go? How are we going to get there? It's a journey. Now, bear in mind, I've coached this kid since he was 14 years old. So I've had him in my stable for 6-7 years at this point. So this is way beyond. Right? This is at the point where he's just becoming a senior lifter. I've coached him since he was a child, if you like. Now he's becoming a senior lifter. I have to make some decisions. And one of the most important decisions I made at this point was to elevate the frequency of the power snatch. And what Sergey was pointing out in his presentation was that almost before you start to emphasize the power snatch into your programming, you had better do some hang work before that. You have to do some preparatory work. You have to prepare the athlete for what's to come. So here we have a training cycle, which is going to be 7 weeks in duration, which you'll see in a second. Before that training cycle, there was another cycle of about 8 weeks in duration, which was a lot of hang work, hang powers, hang snatches, all of the hang preparation. Sergey also mentioned that the demand on the tendons and the ligaments is high when you're doing such work. And during this phase of training for the athlete, we have to navigate both knee tendinopathies and ankle tendon issues. We had to reduce training, and you're going to see it in a second when Sergey puts up the other slides, of how it undulated throughout the training cycle. So here's the reality of the theory. Sergey's presented to you the reasons why you should bring this stuff in. And I'm going to show you the reality of a training cycle that worked to such a degree that the athlete succeeded very, very well. So Sergey, can you perhaps put up slide 2? And what we have here is my beautiful handwriting, as you'll agree, viewers. So we've got frequency, a principle of programming. So you must program frequently the thing that you're trying to elicit. Power Snatch in session 1 is there. Power Snatch also is in session 4. And Snatch is in session 3. So we've got a 5-day cycle. And the athlete is training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. And here we have 2 frequencies of the Power Snatch, 1 frequency of the Snatch. And remember, we also have another strata, which is clean and jerk fitness, which means that the athlete must clean and jerk a lot. Now, I know the athlete can clean, but he cannot jerk in competition. He can, but like his limit is the jerk for the 2nd or 3rd attempt. Very important. So we have here clean 2 jerk 1, we have clean front squat jerk, and power cleans. So you can see the cycle which is built, and at the top there's Gergo, if you go to the 6, 8, 7, 10, what we have there is these are the levels of relative intensity that I want his body to feel. So week 1 should feel easy, 6. Week 42 should feel relatively challenging, should be an 8 out of 10 difficulty. Week 43 is a 7, so that's coming down. We've deloaded, and then week 44 is an up, is a 10, it's maximum. I want him completely fatigued. Now, also, if you take the cursor down to session 2, you can see it's blank. So I've only got 3 sessions programmed in on that week, because I realized that he has to do, like, he's not doing nothing on session 2. He's doing accessory work. He's doing like pressing and bicep curls and deltoid stuff. He's not doing weightlifting though. He's recovering because the demand is high. So I've had to take down the total volume of sessions in order to account for the 10 scale of intensity that I want. Volume is going to be down on this week. I can promise you. He cannot lift as many repetitions because I'm demanding intensity. I know he has to peak in terms of his spike. Gergo, put the next slide up, please. So we have weeks 45, 40. So as I told you at the outset, this is a competition prep for the most important competition of his life, but also it's about 7 weeks in duration, maybe 8. But we have to taper off for competition. So we've got the first 4-week block. Now we have this week block. You can see Power Snatch is still in, we've got in session 1 and session 5. So I've changed the emphasis. I've brought the Snatch in to session 2 and session 4. And I've altered the Power Snatch to be session 1, session 5. So you can see the changes are happening as we draw closer to competition. Like, it's pretty specific, this program. Everything's from the floor, nothing's from the hang position. You know, we're leading up to a very, very important competition. So it must be the most specific. So my hypothesis in my brain was to make this cycle of training as transferable as possible. So I know I have to go from the floor. That's the highest transfer. I've done all my preparatory work way back in previous cycles. So there's no hang work here. There's only specific work from the floor. Power snatch, snatch. Power clean, jerk. Clean and jerk, 1 + 1, 2. Clean 2, jerk 1. Clean front squat, jerk. Everything from the floor. But managing the fatigue on the joints, the fatigue on the organism, which is what the undulation is, which is what the 6, 8, 7, 10, 7, 9, 10. I'm undulating the volume because I know the intensity must be high. And at the very, I don't know if you noticed, but on the first slide, it said volume moderate, intensity high. So you must put the weight on the bar. Oh, okay. This is a very highly trained athlete. This is an international standard athlete. This is what you can do when when the correlation is high. This is what you can do with it when the efficiency is high, when their skill is high. So what we have here is our power snatches. We have our power clean jerks. We have our snatches, etc. And in the top right corner, Gergo, if you can put the mouse up there. So these are not what I programmed. Right? These are surprises to me. These are so this is the highest frequency of power snatching that I ever programmed this athlete. And as you can see there in the top corner, he did a 110 double, and he did just, that's it, lovely. So he did a double at 110, a single at 15, and a single at 120. His best power snatch before the 7 weeks of this cycle was 108. Like, I didn't know that he was going to go above like plus 12 on his power snatch. That's just ridiculous. But it happened. And the reason that it's in the top right-hand corner is because it happened at a point whereby in the gym, when I was coaching him in the gym, he moved the, what was prescribed, 105 for a double. It moved so fast that I said, put 110 on. Then he made 110 easy. I said, go 15 for a single. Now go 20 for a single. We didn't know that was going to happen, right? Because, go, bring the scroll down to session 4, 125, 155. So what you can see here, that's what I programmed in. At the beginning of the session, of 7 weeks beforehand, I wrote 25 for a double, 155, clean 2, jerk 1. That is what I wanted for the athlete to achieve over 7 weeks. So remember, we come off the back of 131, 155. That was an increase on his previous total. We have momentum. We have an athlete who's training really well. And now I'm going to really hone in on the specificity of why the power snatch transfers over to his snatch results, and why my brain said to me he needs to be fitter at jerks for his lifts. But it's not, he's got a 180 jerk off the blocks. It's not because I need to increase his jerk from blocks. I need to increase his jerk under fatigue. So these are the considerations of the coach. And this is the way I program it. I write the result in way forward, 25 for a double, 155 for a 2+1 cleaner jerk, and then I program to get that result over 7 weeks. Given the fact I know the athlete, I know him very well, I know what stimulates him very well, I know how his body responds to training, I know what kind of condition his mentality's in. I'm working with him all the time. And this is the conclusion of that. So, Sergey, put up the slides that we've got from the system, so everybody can see how it undulates over the period of time. There we
are. I guess I should start with the first weeks, right?
Whatever, it doesn't matter. I'll just
okay.
talk about that.
So this is the snatch, power snatch in the first 4 weeks.
So here we are. This is weeks, whatever it is, 42, 43, 44. And we have 93, 94, 94, 94, 95, 99. So you can see how it's sort of like it's always rising, but there's a little dip in there where we have to take some recovery. We have to be sensible about how we load the athlete. Go to the next slide, Gergo, please.
Just
Yeah, lovely.
This is the power snatch in the following weeks.
So again, so we've come back off it with 95, 99, a little bit higher, 97 down, 104. That's the peak part of it, and now we're down at 100. So you can see all the while, it's, if we were to draw a linear line, a straight line from like the back end to the front end, it would be from 93 to 104. That's a peak.
These are the average intensities. So that's the average kilogram of the training.
So you can see how it rose over the period, but also it undulated. All right. So the importance being that once we made our decision about the power snatch being the priority in the training cycle, that's how I phased it together for the athlete over a period of time. What's the next slide? Can I go, please?
We just have it together with the snatch.
Lovely. So what have we got here? We got exercise volume and average intensity between the snatch and the power snatch, and that is a beautiful example of it. So you can see here, 93, 106, 94, 94, 109, 106, 109. So it beautifully waves up and down for the athlete. Go to the next slide, please, which will be the final one. That's it.
I believe this is it.
Yeah, and there we see, because this is remember, this is a peaking cycle. So you can see the athlete peaks at that 116, 111, 114, 130. And it's beautifully almost crafted, if you like, that it reaches that phase, which it should do. And bear it in mind, put the camera back up, that the athlete, it didn't miss any lifts, right? Make every lift on the training cycle. There were no steps, there were no misses. The standard lifting was so high at that moment that everything transferred. So we're going to speak in a minute about the amount of transfer that a lift has, the coefficients. So efficiency means that the lift will transfer into the training. If your efficiency is low or variable, there's no way it can transfer. How does it transfer? How can you measure variable quality of lifting? You can't. So you need to, like what Sergey was talking about, was the education of the in-principle lifter. That this is about educating lifters through the journey of year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. And I'm talking about a lifter who's year 7, 8. He should be efficient, or she. The lifter should be very, very efficient about what they're doing. They should know what they're doing. I should be able to trust that the quality of lifting is so high that when I program, it transfers directly into the sports results. And that's what you're going to see here. So this competition ended up in Michael lifting 294 kilos. So that was a +8 result on the previous competition of 286. So he went up +12 on his power snatch, but he also went up +3 on his competition snatch. And he ended up clean and jerking 160. He cleaned 63, missed the jerk. Okay, fair enough. I can take that. Again, that was part of but what my decision making was accurate. The hypothesis was true, and the thought process is what we used, the variance that we used in it. The power snatch frequency was higher than snatch frequency, transferred directly into his competition results. And the fitness that we gained from clean to front squat, clean to jerk 1, clean front squat jerk, etc., elevated his jerk into a plus state when it came to his competition. And that competition qualified him for the games. It got him a 3rd place ranking in the Commonwealth, and so he would have won a bronze medal at the championships had he have been able to go there. So this was a very impressive, not just from the athlete, but from the relationship between the coach and the athlete. It was a very good program cycle. We worked well together. He fed back to me. I was intuitive. I knew what to do. It all worked well as a cycle. And that's what you have to do as a coach. You have to interpret certain things. So what Sergey and Gelko are doing are giving you the platforms in order to base your decisions on, and then you make your decisions. And you have to make them well. You have to make them with reason. You have to know why you're going to choose the variation, the cycle that you're doing, and how it is going to propagate into competition results. There you go.
Thank you, Justin. Was that? Say it again because I couldn't hear.
I said I believe that was 20 minutes on the dot.
Yeah, it was actually. It's actually on my clock it was 19, but that's okay. That's fine. So before we go on to the questions, I just want to pick on that last thought that you mentioned, Justin, that you have to base your decisions on hypothesis and information when you create the training cycle. And that's what actually were behind the research into the lifting ratios. And it has to be understood that they are averages, and they are averages for the best performers in the weight class or in the in the genders. And then what they mean basically is that once you have the establish what your ratios are and you compare to the average of that top performing lifter, you will see where you might lack compared to that average of the best performers. And that can drive your training decisions. And I believe that's what you did also, Justin, that you looked at the ratios and you saw that the power snatch was really below for Michael in whatever ratio standards you used. And that what we looked into is that making that ratios transparent and validated the ideas that coming from actual exercise science and literature. So what I'm gonna share here in a second, because our intention was from the start to build this into our application. For each athlete's profile, you have the maximums of the athlete entered, and then our charts will show you basically, again, talking about averages and where the athlete falls below the average in the snatch and in the clean and jerk. You're going to see that in that radar chart. So the red is the average, the green is where you are compared to the ratios, and you can clearly visualize where the improvement needs to happen, whether it's this hang snatch, block snatch, front squat, or all together, or what you don't need to focus on in this case, which is the power snatch seems to be sufficient. And the same for the clean and jerk. And all this is based on the most current research. And if you are interested, you can just go to barbellnotes.com/app and you can play around with these ratios there and test for your athletes or check what decisions you want to make. All right, so that was the addition, and also just one note on Sergey's presentation. With that, so how the hang snatch and the power snatch came into the picture, other than they have the highest correlation to the competition snatch, it actually also, to put it very simply, if we want to visualize the variance across a lot of athletes, we had 250 athletes in our research. If you want to visualize the difference of obvious choices, looking at the snatch, you can put the athletes in order by how high their snatches are. And basically what came out as a result that if you put them in order, or if you order the athletes by the sum or some other aggregation of their hang snatch and the power snatch, the two lists will 95% match each other. So that means that the variance between the athletes is explained almost the same amount. And that's why the hang snatch and the power snatch seem to be like those which drive the difference across athletes. Okay, so that's it. I just wanted to have that to addition to the presentations.
The correlation, the closeness of all these variations.
Yep.
When Sergey was putting up the video of the lifters doing those lifts at really very modest loads, they were close to competition doing those variations. They were doing them for the reason of maximum efficiency. So what you're looking for is what is the part of the lift that is breaking down. So any part of the lift that breaks down is going to remove the coefficient away from the sports result. So, when you're looking at efficiency, technique, whatever we want to call it, you're looking at all of the parameters that will transfer into sports results. And the real, I suppose the talent, the gift of the coach is to know what is the breakdown of that efficiency. So that's the real. So we can say that power snatch transfers, but if the power snatch is not like the snatch, then it won't transfer. If the snatch below knee is not the snatch, so the pull must be identical to what you're seeing in Sergey's presentation is an identical pull from one thing to the other. He said it's complicated. It's not easy to do the touch and go snatch like that. It's not easy. I've never programmed that in my life. I can promise you, because it's too difficult. From my my background, I don't have enough skill as a coach to program it like Sergey would program it, or even coach it like that. So I can't introduce it like this. It takes a lot of skill as a coach to get your athletes to sense how to lift that well for it to transfer into your sports results.
Right. And then also these statistical analysis with the ratios, it should also just complement the what you see as a coach. So you're gonna see why certain movements are problematic, and probably you're gonna see those movements coming up with the ratios being below the average. So that's my experience when I talk to coaches, like, hey, this athlete's gonna have some problem with the hang snatch based on how he stands, she stands with the ratios, and then yeah, that's correct. Usually that's the response I get. But I have a question for you, Sergey. Actually, you mentioned that the power snatch, we have to be careful with the power variations in the power snatch because it can overwhelm the ligaments and stuff. So what would be the volume that you see, either in terms of percentages or just, you also mentioned like you have to be smart with the volume in the hang snatch. So is there kind of like a ratio wise guidance on that, what smart volume would be, or
I will tell you. Thank you for this question. So I will respond like this. First of all, there is a classical model that I use that to have workable and efficient training program, the volume of snatch and clean and jerk exercises supposed to be about 50% of all volume. And
okay.
then when we have this 50% of volume, we should distribute it not equally, but about 45% for snatch and 55% for clean and jerk, because in clean and jerk, we actually have two exercises, clean and jerk. That is why clean and jerk volume will be always a little bit more, but not too much, because recovery from clean and jerk is always longer. And speaking about this 25% that left for snatch exercises, the practice recommendation is don't go over 40% of this 25 for the power snatch load, because as I said, it's not very natural for our joint to catch the weight on the angle around of 90% of knee, because if we go deeper to the rehab practices, the test for the stability of the knee, it's when the therapist put the knee in the 90-degree and started to move, because it's the most risky position for our knee angle. And if we do a lot of power snatches and power cleans and put our knee joints in the most unstable position, sooner or later we will be in trouble. So I don't say we shouldn't do this. We should just be smart enough, because it's a critical position for our knee. And those knees supposed to be ready for this. They should know how to balance between other parts of our body, and we should give enough of time for recovery.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. And I guess, yeah.
To that, because if you think about it, the quadriceps going to break, and they're going to break on the tendon. So when you're power snatching, you're asking the quadricep to just contract and extend, but also to break, and it's going to pull on the tendon. So the preparatory cycle is about preparing the tendons, not just the muscles. but you have to prepare the tendons for the loading. So, you know, when an athlete elevates, like when Michael hits that 134, he's not ready for those percentages yet on his training cycle. You can't just throw the percentages at him. You have to prepare him first for maybe 10, 12, 16 weeks of preparatory work, like Sergey's saying, of consideration of what is the load on the tendon, what's the extra load on the joints, because it's never the big muscles, it's always the joint or the attachment muscles that limit your training. And then you have to stop training. I don't want to stop training. I want to continue training all the time.
Right.
Yes, master, you are right.
Thank you. Right, there you go.
Yeah, I don't have more questions. I mean, that was just something that catch my mind on the volume part of the hang snatch and the power snatch. So it's great.
I got loads of questions. So
just go.
That's the difference between the female and male training cycles, because remember, all of these, from what I've read, everything was in a male environment, if you like. So the ratios that I'm basing it on, my instinct is I need to elevate the female training cycle by about 10 to 15, maybe 20%. You know, it's up. The average intensity is up. The average volume is up. Everything's up for a female, right? But to get a female stronger by 1 is much more difficult. Like, it's way more difficult to get a back squat from 30 to 40 is a much more difficult route, because you have to base it on volume. You're not basing it on the archetype of 3, 2, 1. Do you get my Sergey? What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. My assumption, my beliefs is the same. Women will be always ready to handle or eat more volume. They ready to work more on and they also ready to go to the higher intensities more often than men. But in the same time, progress will not be so active. But in the same time, we should remember that, for example, training women of 81 weight class and training men of 81 weight class, it will be different trainings, also from the perspective on impact on the joints, because elite woman in the 81 class will be able to do clean and jerk like 130, 140, maybe 150, but the man with 81 weight class will be able to do clean and jerk 200. But the gravity and the joints and the bones are the same. That is why recovery for the man will be crucial, and that is why they will never be able to do such a high volume as a woman. And we should keep it in mind. And also age, mastery level, it also depends a lot, but this is the main.
I agree. So, like, what these are, you know, when you're taking your the information, you're taking the evidence, what we know, what we don't know, and we are putting it into our programs and our systems. Like, we want, like, the beauty of your system, Gergo, is that we want the information to come back to us. Like, you could see there with the graph of Michael's training. Now, mine was on paper. It wasn't on your system back in the day. I wrote it in 2021 before we started speaking. But you could see how beautifully it waved into the right zones. It did all of its job. I never did that. I had to instinctively do that. But I would want to, as a coach, I would want that information. So that is the beauty of a system, is when you want the information, it's there before you, and I can see that my choices that I've instinctively created are correct.
Right. And also what we discussed and we can do is that we can take that cycle from the past, and now we can turn it into a relative intensity template. And so you can get that insight of why it was working and whether it would be working with someone else who had the same setup as Michael had back then. So that's also important, that we can get insight into what was the average relative intensity, because you do everything in absolute terms, and use that insight in the next training plan and reuse it for multiple athletes. So that's what is needed for the scalability and quickness of creating training templates for the higher demand of athletes a coach has.
Correct.
There's a question, actually. So it's in the chat. So the question is, what do you think happens to the lifting ratios for older lifters, say 40 plus years old, assuming mobility is sufficient for the squat variations? So what's your take, Sergey and Justin?
My answer is like this, that if the mobility is a limitation factor for the people who are 40 plus, like me. I am 40 plus, but I'm training all my life, and sometimes I feel that I have a limitation in my joints. In this case, I stopped lifting and started to stretch. Maybe it will sound for someone too boring, but I would say that if you will try to compensate form by your strength, sooner or later you will meet the surgeries. That is why it's my opinion. That is why if you feel that your form is not good because of some limitation, stop on doing stupid thing and work on mobility. Because if you are lifting not for getting salary and you are lifting for fun, training with higher risk to get injury and to do a snatch 76 kilos and this could be interesting only for you, it doesn't make any sense. So in the perspective of recreational weightlifting, I believe that form and mobility should be always priority in comparison of any result, because all results that we are lifting in the age 40 plus, it's only a result for having fun and to feel good and be happy. This is my answer.
And if I may jump on it before you, Justin. So what we did in the research, we looked at what is the age correlation of what is the age correlation to the maximal result. And what we found is that biological age doesn't have a correlation. It has a super weak correlation with how with the snatches. What has a correlation is training age. So I would assume that the ratios would still hold even if you are 40 plus. What you should consider is what Sergey was saying, is whether your mobility is enough, whether you do it for a living or you just do it for fun. And you should always consider the volume of your training in that regard, because I think that 40 plus, I'm 40 plus too, people should use less volume than younger people, or can handle less volume because of life stress and everything else. So that's my take on the question that I just wanted to answer. Just go ahead, Justin.
Well, the first thing I wrote was training age. It's like if you're 40, when did you enter the sport of weightlifting? Because it is an obscure sport, right? Nature does not put a snatch above your head into a squat position. You don't go and find that out in nature. The human body has to be trained for this thing over many years. So if you've come into the sport, if you're plus 40 and you started at 37 and you've got a young training age with an old body, you have to compensate for that. You have to be very sensitive to the decisions that you're putting your body through. The thing I wrote was previous sports. What have you done in your past? Like, were you an open sport player? Were you a gymnast? Were you did you play tennis? Like, I've trained many throwers in my career, and they all internally rotate. Well, weightlifting doesn't like that. Like, if you internally rotate to the right-hand side because you throw a javelin, you're going to catch your snatches forward on the right-hand side. You're going to have to look at the history of your sports as well as your life. For example, if you're 40 plus and you drive a car, and again your foot's on the accelerator pedal, you're going to have to compensate for that in your training. So it's a very nuanced question or answer, shall I say, because you are combating age, and you have to come back from the 40 years old all the way back to life history, because weightlifting does not care about your history. It wants symmetry. You have an asymmetric form for a symmetric sport, right? The bar is symmetric. You have to catch it symmetric. You have to lift it in symmetry, and you are asymmetric. There you go. So if you're 40 and you're not symmetric, like none of us are symmetric, so we're all asymmetric in some fashion. That's why we have compensations. That's why we have little injuries and niggles. So the symmetry of your body, you have to respect all of the principles of weightlifting. And it's a very difficult thing when you have enthusiasm to lift the weight, you want to go heavier. I get that. No problem. That's for your coach. Your coach has to just temper these obscurities of your persona, let's say. What was the third thing I wrote was speed and strength. So I can get you stronger, 40. I can't get you faster. So if you're 40 years old, I'm not going to get you faster. I'm going to get you stronger, right? So that's a problem because in weightlifting, you have to maintain speed strength. You have to be fast. You can't just be strong, because that's just force production. It's going to be too slow. So when you get strong, if you get somebody who's 40 who can pull 180 and squat 220 or whatever the numbers are, you're going to have a problem when it comes to snatching, because if they pull slow, they're going to snatch slow. So we're in a speed sport. You have to maintain acceleration. And when you're older, you're going to decelerate. You won't be able to train the quality of speed. So Sergey's 40, plus 40, whatever he is, but he's always trained speed. And that is a quality that will degrade. It won't be his strength. His raw strength will stay with him. His speed will degrade. So in weightlifting, you can't have that. That's my answer.
Thank you. Thank you. It's worth.
Did we answer the question? Okay, super.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Just keep them coming. We still have 2 minutes of the original schedule, but we can go over if there are more.
Gentlemen, we've done very well indeed.
Yep.
Speed strength. Would you say power snatch or power clean is better option? What shall I begin? Who's it for, Izzy? A weightlifter or a sports performer? Another sport? Rugby. Okay. So I would say to you, if you're going to introduce a different sport to weightlifting, what's the most available position? Can they get the bar here, or can they get the bar here? So because you have to consider the demands of the weightlifting on another sport. So for example, if you've got a male and they can't front rack, like that's going to be a problem. Like if they can't put the bar overhead because they're really compromised in their shoulders and their thoracic, that's an issue. So I would say to you, why don't you just put them on a box and jump them? That would be the best solution for that athlete, is to jump the athlete. If you want triple extension, which the only reason a power cleaner, a weightlifter, is for extension purposes, a rugby player rather, is to extend them. Then you have to learn how to extend them without any issues. So if they've got a front rack, power clean. If they have a front rack and they don't know how to pull from the floor, power clean from hip. Perfect. Lovely. Thank you very much. All done. Go from the hip, jump, catch. Thank you. Put the bar down. Because what you don't have is the time it takes a weightlifter to learn how to power clean. You've got you've got a different sport athlete having to come into weightlifting motions, which are brilliant, don't get me wrong, but you have to learn the skill. And as we've just discussed here, skill is transferred. If your skill is low, your transfer is not high. So if you want extension, i.e. jumping, then jump them as heavy as you can, like barbell back squat jumps. I love barbell back squat jumps. Everyone can do those. put a bar on your back and jump. Right, keep your back straight. Obviously, you have to catch the landing, but you can jump with a barbell. You can jump with dumbbells. You can jump. You want extension is what you're looking at is for power. So if you don't have any positions, because if you don't have a position, nothing transfers. You're just literally creating a compensation and creating an injury potentially in the future. There we are. That's my answer.
Sergey, you want to jump
I
on?
agree. I
Power
agree.
clean? Okay.
I
Just
agree with this answer. Yeah.
Just a quick reference. There is Hungarian coach used to coach the GB team. Tamás Fehér. He has a book on weightlifting training for rugby players. Just you might want to check it out as a reference.
There we are. Look at that.
All right. Any more questions? Last one. I think our time is up, and I don't want to hold up anyone. So thank you all for coming. Really enjoyed it. Learned a lot. And until next time, stay strong and lift big. Bye-bye.
Yes. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.